Let's learn something really quick.
If you got the time, absolutely. And you got the discipline, there's no question about it.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great practice to put into your everyday life, you guys.
You generally regret the things you don't do, not the things you did do. Let me say it that way.
Mic drop. This was just awesome. I love meeting my guests in person, and it's a whole nother animal, and the energy is just electric. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free. To live your best life, you must live label free. And we're back. As you can see, we've got our resident relationship wizard, Fred Talisman, back with us today. And today's actually going to be a really good subject for you guys. So those of you that are maybe struggling, don't know if it's time, or are just hesitant all around about looking for help for your relationship, or, what you might be going through in your life. This is, are you in crisis? How do you define if you're in crisis? How do you know when it's time to reach out to Fred? Which, as you all know, he is willing to give you a free consult call to see if he's the right person to help you at whatever stage you are in with your relationship. So there are many different ways that we can identify if we're in crisis and when it's time to get help. Our previous episode with Fred is the questions that you should ask for a good therapist. So if you're not sure what kind of therapist you're looking for, go back to that episode, listen to it, watch it, and reach out to Fred if you feel he's a good fit. But today we're going to cover, are you in crisis? So Fred, let's talk about that. I brought up some things. I did a little bit of research before we jumped into our meeting today. And there are some key things that are like identifiers in a relationship. If you're struggling and you're wanting to save your relationship, like that's your brand, save, revitalize a relationship. When someone might be in crisis to reach out to you, right? Persistent conflict, communication difficulties, which we've talked about on how to communicate better in previous episodes. Emotional or physical distance, which is a real hard one. It's when you're feeling disconnected from your partner, and how do you get back to where you're feeling connected? Loss of intimacy, that's huge. When your intimacy is gone, that's a problem. Trust issues and life stressors. So which one do you want to start with first, Fred? Spin the wheel. Wheel of fortune here. Wheel of crisis issues in a relationship.
So most people, when they reach out for help, they've been in crisis for quite a while.
Yeah.
Like when somebody calls me and they say, I want help. I want to schedule a counseling session with me and my partner because we want to communicate better.
Okay.
And that's like never true.
No? Why? Why do you say that?
So, well, they may want that, but that's not why they're calling.
Okay.
So I'll hear them out for a minute or two, and then I'll ask the question, is anybody talking about breaking up?
Okay.
And the answer is almost always yes. That's the real reason they're calling.
Right. Okay. So then where do you start with that? Like, because I think everybody uses that, like when they're frustrated in a relationship and they want to it's easier to say, okay, that's it, it's done, than to actually work through the issue, right? Like, okay, let's talk about the hard stuff. Let's deal with what's at hand instead of this person says they want to bounce or that person that says they want to bounce, because that's easier to do than let's sit down and talk about it.
Right. So a crisis can be when there's been a key thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest crisis that most relationships face is when somebody cheats.
Right.
And their partner finds out. And then another major crisis has been a long accumulation where somebody hits their threshold point, feeling they've been verbally abused and disrespected and ignored and not been made a priority. So those are the most common reasons that people will reach out for help.
Yeah. And so that's and that could feel shameful for some people to say that they need help, right? It's like a woman who's in an abusive relationship who's embarrassed and she's scared and she can't get out and she's ashamed that she made that choice, right? So now you're dealing with some people that are in a relationship with someone they love. They've been trying to fix it. They're at each other. They're hitting a brick wall. They don't know how to communicate, and they are essentially in crisis but they don't know how to take that next step to get the help that they need.
Yeah, so that's really good. You brought up about feeling ashamed. So for me, I'm really mindful of that when I make first contact with people, and throughout the work with them, try to be very kind, very compassionate, very respectful, not judging them, not blaming them. It's hard enough to reach out for help without any of that coming from the therapist.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And so how do you get, let's say someone's listening to this right now and they're like, you know what? They're talking about some stuff that I'm dealing with in my relationship, in my marriage, whatever that might look like for them. And they're hesitant to take that step to reach out to you, even though they know it's a free call. They can like reach out to you and have that 30-minute chat to see if that's a good fit for them and how you can help them. What would you say to them if they're listening right now?
I'd say there's negative discomfort and there's positive discomfort.
Yeah.
So if you're exercising and you have an injury and you're uncomfortable because you're working on an injury, then that's negative discomfort, making things worse. If you're doing things like you're really pushing yourself and you're exercising to go faster, to go longer, to lift more weight if you're at the gym, but with good form, so you're doing it safely, that's what we call positive discomfort. Anything that we do that's out of our norm is going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes. So my goal is to be uncomfortable every day. I don't like it, but I know that I'm growing when I'm doing that.
Can you give us an example?
Well, what you brought up, I think that for anybody to reach out for help, for many people, that feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because especially if they see themselves as really, really effective and really, they think they should be able to do it themselves. We really can't do it. Nobody ever taught us.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So when I work with clients, nobody ever says, oh yeah, I already knew how to do that. It's almost always, wow, that really makes sense.
So I'm sure you've experienced someone reaching out and like very hesitant to get help. What does that conversation, I mean, because you've got over 50 years of experience under your belt helping people. Your brand is saving and revitalizing relationships, right? And
Yes.
so I'm sure you've experienced multiple times someone reaching out to you and very hesitant, scared, ashamed, whatever, to get that help that they need. So talk us through what that looks like when you've experienced that with someone.
Well, I first want to hear them out what the presenting problem is, like what caused them to call me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to find out the real reason, not just the presenting reason.
Sure.
Like, what was their real motivation, which is usually they're facing their breakup or considering a breakup, and this is their last hope to see if they can make it work for them. It's usually one or the other.
Yeah.
And then I want to tell them about what to expect. Because a lot of people have heard a lot of horror stories about getting marriage counseling or couples counseling, and many of them are true. So I tell them how I was trained to work, how I believe most therapists work with a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
which is get people talking about the problems, getting really into their negative feelings.
Yeah.
That does tend to make things worse. And I say that what I'm going to do with you in that first session to give you the contrast, because it will tend to work radically different than most others. I want to first hear from you in more detail in that first session, where things are and how you got to that point. Because I've done this long enough, don't need that much information.
Right.
Usually the first part of the first session, I've got the patterns they're dealing with.
Mm.
And then I'm going to give them a step-by-step plan of what it's going to take, give them the best possibility, get from where they are to really revitalize the relationship that works for both of them.
Sure.
And then I'm going to give them, the last part of the session, I'm going to give them a concrete skill that they can use right away to start making things better.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I love that you pointed out that you're different than a lot of other therapists, because I think that a lot of them all work the same way, right? Let's keep digging into the problems, and each person is building their case, and there's nothing ever really resolved, and it just continues to get like escalated when you really like, that's not a great place to start when you are looking for help to fix and revitalize and save your relationship. So I love that you pointed that out, and you've pointed that out before. And I think that's something good, that's what sets you apart from other relationship therapists, counselors that are out there, or coaches, what have you. And that's how you can help make a difference in someone's relationship. But I want to go back to my original question. When someone has called you before they get into that first session, and they are really scared, nervous to actually go into a first session with you, how do you help them feel comfortable? So let's say someone's watching this, listening right now, and they booked that call with bookWithFredT.com, and they get on the phone with you, and they're like, I'm really nervous about this, or they put in the notes when they book the call, I'm really nervous. I'm not sure what to expect. How do you approach that with them to make them feel comfortable and know that they're safe?
So first of all, a lot of people that call me have first read my website, saveyourrelationship.com, and I give a lot of information. I talk about how I work in detail. I give a lot of success stories. I'm a big fan of success stories for myself. I want to work with somebody for anything. I want to know what's possible with that person. They want to see if
I agree. I look at the 5-star reviews.
Yeah. So those that have read that are already comfortable. Those that haven't, then again, by telling them, how I work, that lets them know it's not going to be like what they experienced before.
Sure.
And that they're getting the benefit of all my years of experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me all these years to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Right. You've created your own path to success within your practice as a therapist, coach, your expertise with whatever person, I know that, and we talked about this before we jumped in to do today's episode, that it's a scary thing to admit that you need help, right? In today's world, everybody wants to be self-sufficient. We think that we know it all. We can like Google search everything. And, sometimes that's just not enough. And so like the point of today's episode is to let people know that it is okay to admit that you need help, that if you are in crisis and you don't know what else to do, that you are here and willing to offer them some guidance and some support in a place where they've never been before, where they are kind of stuck.
Well, I think of getting help for anything that we need help with is an act of power. And I have that attitude.
Act of power. What do you mean by that?
Means that the most successful people have gotten the best coaching, have the best advisors. They have the equivalent of Henry Ford's desk.
Yep.
Did I ever tell you about Henry Ford's desk?
I think you told the story in a couple episodes before, but you can share that again, because it's a really great analogy on someone anyone needing guidance in their life for whatever. Right.
Well, the story that I read is that when Henry Ford was a senior citizen, there was a faction of his company that tried to get him kicked out because they wanted to take over. And they tried to get him declared mentally incompetent. So they're able to pull off getting a competency trial. And they have him on the witness stand, and they said, Mr. Ford, you're president of one of the largest corporations in the world, yet as far as we know, you don't even read a newspaper. So tell us about that. He said, well, I've got a big, beautiful cherry wood desk. And they're smirking because they think he's about to make their case for them. He said, on my desk are a bunch of buttons. And if I get a call, this internal strife in Uruguay, because we have a plant in Uruguay, I press button number 83, and it gets me instant access to the top advisor in the world of how internal strife in Uruguay affects an American corporation. And one by one, he names all these all these horrendous issues he has to deal with daily, and he has experts for every single issue this company's ever going to face.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great, great story. And it's just an example of the greatest leaders in the world need experts to help them in different situations, right?
Right.
So
Need the best
why
advice.
advisors, right? Why would it be different? And so if someone's listening or watching, wherever you're finding us right now, and you are looking for guidance in your relationship, it is not a weakness to seek out an expert to fix something that you have no experience to fix.
Right. So I pride myself when I need help or I want to improve in something, find the best expert I could find.
Yeah.
When I wanted to learn weightlifting, I found like one of the top bodybuilders in the world that was close to me, and he's the one to train me. When I wanted to get better at go from ping pong to table tennis and get better at that, I got a coach that had been the top woman player in the country. Made all the difference. These were brilliant people.
Oh, yeah.
They taught me I could not have figured out on my own.
I know I've asked this question before. What makes you an expert helping people save their relationships?
Well, first of all, because I learned the hard way. You know my turning point story.
Yeah.
When my first wife left me, and I had the shocking realization I neither knew how to save and fix my own relationship or anybody else's.
Yeah.
What I was taught in graduate school was totally inadequate. What we experienced in marriage counseling made things worse with the same experience most people have. And so that gave me the determination to find out what it really took to save a relationship and make it work fully for both people.
Yeah. I love that story because not only have you got all the experience under your belt, but you've first-handedly have experienced it. So it's not like you're coming from a place of not knowing what it feels like to go through something like that. Going back to the name and the subject matter of this episode is Are You in Crisis?
Right.
And, you know, whether you want to admit it or not, and you're experiencing persistent conflict, communication difficulties, emotional, physical distance, loss of intimacy, trust issues, life stressors, and you're finding a disconnect in your relationship, there is help for you. And it doesn't have to be the end of the world. You know, I mean, it's all about how we learn to deal with those issues in a healthy way, right? In a healthy way. And sometimes we need someone to show us that roadmap that would be healthy to work through that laundry list of things that come up in a marriage or in a relationship, because marriage and relationships aren't easy. It's all about growing with someone and working through those different issues that pop up during the course of your lifetime together.
Yes. So I think that a really key thing for people to understand is that being in crisis at times is part of life, is not to be ashamed of, and to really have an understanding, educate yourself of what it takes to get the right kind of help. Because a lot of people think, well, if they go to a marriage counselor, somehow magically just spewing in all their anger and frustrations with their partner will fix the relationship. It will not. It's likely to make things worse. But going to somebody who's going to really teach them the skills to be able to heal their relationship and make it work, it does work.
Yeah. You know, when I go back to your experience in your first marriage and you were blindsided, were you experiencing any of those issues that I mentioned? Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Did you feel you were?
Yeah. We were in crisis, and I was completely unaware we were in crisis.
That had to be like such like sideswiped.
Well, I kept rationalizing, why she wasn't there for me. And just, legal rationalization to myself. She cared for her dying mother for a year. She cared for dying father for a year. So she was basically an absentee spouse for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But there was a lot more. That was like one of many things that weren't working.
Yeah. So you guys, with what he just shared and the things that we've gone through, he is an expert with what he does. Fred is very skilled in helping save, revitalize relationships and marriages. This is what he does. This is his brand. He's got tons of recommendations, referrals on his website, relationshipmagic.com, or no, save your relationship.
SaveYourRelationship.com is where I see all the success stories.
Okay, perfect. Yes. And now, how can people set up a call with you? Like if they're listening to this, watching this, wherever you guys are tuning in, let them know where they can set up that free call and make the change in their life today.
You can go to bookwithfredT.com. That's bookwithfredT.com. And that will give you, to set up that no-cost introductory call.
Excellent.
Happy to do it with you.
Excellent. You guys, we're going to put those links in the show description, wherever you are tuning in at today. Do not hesitate. Make the call. Set up the call. There's nothing to lose, nothing to be afraid of, and nothing to be ashamed of either. Fred is highly skilled. He is an expert at what he does. So take advantage of that offer and book your call today. Fred, as always, it's been such a pleasure. Love covering all these very important topics and helping people save their relationships, because that's what we want to do. We're here to help. We're here to serve. Let's save as many relationships as possible. So thank you again. And I can't wait till the next episode.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free. To live your best life, live label free. This is the wrap for today's episode. We will be back next week, so stay tuned. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and make sure you book that call with Fred.
If you are struggling in your relationship or facing a breakup, Fred Talisman can help you. Fred is one of the top marriage counselors and top relationship coaches in the world. For over 25 years, he's helped thousands of his clients who are on the verge of losing their relationship to stop their breakup, even if they feared it was beyond saving, and even if they were the only one who wants to save it. Whatever you're facing in your relationship, he can help you to fix, including infidelity, broken trust, fighting and arguing, not feeling heard and understood, lack of communication and lack of respect, verbal abuse, feeling like you're walking on eggshells, and feeling judged and criticized. Can Fred help you save your relationship and help you to keep your family together? Probably. The best way to know if he can help you is for you to have a no-cost conversation with him. Call or text Fred now to spend some time talking to him. Once he hears about your situation, he can tell you how he can help you. You can call or text him now at 3104-293658 or email him at fred@saveyourrelationship.com. Everyone that Fred helped to repair their relationship had one thing in common. They each had that first conversation with him. To check out his success stories, go to saveyourrelationship.com.